Hello there, I'm Jimmy Vegas and this is how to create a 3D endless runner in Unity, and welcome to episode 14. In this tutorial we're going to create a screen so as when we end our run it tells us how far we've run, how many coins we've collected. We're also going to have a fade out screen in preparation for transitioning scenes. Don't forget, click subscribe button and click on the bell icon as well to stay up to date with every tutorial still to come in this series and everything else on my channel. With that in mind, let's get to work. So the basic idea of how this is all going to work is when we hit an obstacle and end our run, so remember we had Timmy stumble backwards, that's then going to initiate another script which is going to tell us everything we've done in the level and then transition to what will be a main menu. And we'll get to the main menu probably next tutorial. So for now, all we really need to do is create in our canvas a little kind of piece of UI that basically says what we've done. So if we go to our canvas, in fact we'll double click the canvas so we can see it a little better, and I'm actually going to turn off the fade in, so turn that off up there just so we can see the stats here. And essentially what we can kind of do here is duplicate them and reuse them, but not quite in the same way that they are right now. And what I mean by that is they're going to be inside one single object, and it's going to be that one single object on the canvas that is turned on whenever we end our run. So for now, let's hold both of the hold control, select both of those, duplicate, and I'm going to place them inside an empty game object. So right click, create empty, and let's just get that out of there, place it in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this once it's inside of there, but for now let's just take that into there. So you can see all of that is flowing through nicely. So if we were to turn off that game object, it would disappear. You can see it. So let's move it out here so we can see it actually being turned off. There we go. Because when we were doing that, it was just on top of the other one. Right. Okay. So how are we going to do this? Well, like I said, we're going to manipulate what's inside this game object. Now, we want to have this probably center screen, so I'm going to zero out the position so we do have it center. And this coin display, I am going to kind of change its size a little bit, but that may mean actually moving around some other elements of this UI. So it's probably worth noting at this point when dealing with a bit more in-depth UI like this, it can be a little bit, you've got to be careful, I think, more than anything, because if we start changing the size of it, you can see things have become a bit distorted and not synced properly with how they should look. So always be careful when playing around with a UI like this. So for now, I'm going to move them out of there into the main game object. I'm going to change this coin display and in brackets 1 just to make it a little bit bigger. So let's probably have it somewhere around there maybe. And I'm going to position it exactly center again. Maybe I should actually have this width and height as some sensible numbers. So let's have 900 on the width and 450 on the height. Next, let's go to our distance display and let's take these as well and place them inside the game object. And I think we can probably get rid of that distance display object as well. So effectively, all we've done now is create a big box and duplicate these up here. So if we were to select those again and move them to, let's say, round about there, then yeah, that should do the trick. So we should do the same with these as well. Let's have that maybe about there. And as I always say, I am not kind of being careful here. I rush it a little bit, and you should take the time to kind of make these look a little better than what they actually are. But while we are here, let's actually change the font of these particular objects. So we had the font brought in, so we may as well use it on these objects. Because what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add in another little piece of text to say run is over on the main section. So let's change everything here and this one as well. And now I'm going to duplicate this discount. So hold Control, press D, and I'm going to move it upwards. And let's have this text just say your run is over. And just expand that a little more. Let's have that in the center or just above those. That should do. Let's go to the game view and see how that looks. Okay, so yeah, it's very simplistic right now. You need to take a little bit more time and make it look a little better. But essentially, what's going to happen here is when we end our run, this game object is going to appear on screen like that. And we're going to turn off these two sections up here. That's the plan, at least, anyway. So there are a couple of things that we're going to need to do to make sure this all works as intended. We need to make sure that these numbers reflect whatever these numbers say by the end of the run. And as you probably know right now, whenever we run, we update this via a script, and the same with this one. So all we really need to do is update these at the same time. So let's go to scripts, let's go to collectibles, and let's go to coin collect, or collect coin as it is called. Let's open that up in Visual Studio. So all we're going to do is we're going to declare a new variable, which is going to be that extra little thing there. So that coin collect is where we basically maintain all of our coins. So every time we go into it, we say collectible control, coin count +1. So if we follow that all the way back, then it means that we do actually need to go into collectible control. So which is that one. Probably would have helped to go into that one first. So you can say, see here that we update this line of code to say, yep, goes into there, our coin count. So if we copy this variable right here, paste it below, and this is coin count display. We're going to call this coin end display. So we can use this same line of code right here, place it there, coin end display. Now, we are probably going to change this a little later on, but for all intents and purposes right now, I want to kind of illustrate to you how this is working. This is not the best way of doing it, but I'm showing you and illustrating how all of this process works. So if we head back to Unity, and if we go to level control, I believe the script is on. Yep, you can see it right there, coin end display. That's going to be coin count down here inside that game object that we created earlier. So let's rename that game object from earlier and call it end screen, just so we know where we are at. And if we go to level control again, I do believe it's going to be this one right here. So level distance. If we go into that script as well, and down here we've got display.getComponentText displays the run. So all we need to do is copy this here, paste below, and say dis end display. So we can copy that line of code, place it there, and we'll have that as dis end display. It shows the distance run. So let's save this now and head back into Unity. Now, this isn't going to work straight away, but we're going to see a vague kind of instance of this working as intended. So we just need to add into here discount over to there. And I'm going to turn off end screen and press play. Now, there are a couple more things that we're going to have to deal with here. So let's get Timmy to hit that. We can still see this is counting up here. So that's what we have to deal with next. So whenever we stop, we get hit, whatever, we need to turn off the distance display. So if we go to our level control, it's going to be level distance. So we need to turn off this script. So if we go to our environment and we go to obstacle collision, we now need to declare another variable, which is going to be the level control. So public game object, and we'll call this level control semicolon. And essentially all we want to do is turn off that script. So we're saying level control dot get component, and in spiky brackets, what's it called? I've forgotten what it's called already. Level distance. So level distance, close bracket, dot enabled equals false, semicolon, and save. And like I say, this is not necessarily the best way of doing it, but for all intents and purposes, it gets us to where we need to be able to see what we're doing. As we get further into this series and we get more in-depth coding, we're going to come back and we're going to modify some of these to kind of optimize the game a little bit more. But since we're not in the optimization phase of development right now, we don't need to worry one little bit. So let's now assign the script for collision. So everything that has a collision right now, which shouldn't be too much, we need to add in that particular variable. So I'm going to zoom in on my player. And I don't think we've dealt with too much in terms of collision, have we? It's just maybe a couple of things. These objects here, aren't they? Yeah. So we've only done a few things at the moment. Like I said, because we're not massively deep into development, we don't need to worry. But everything that does have that collision script on, if you select it, you'll see over here, it is the same script in all of those. So basically, if you have objects selected and there is a common variable, a common element between each one, a common component, it will display all of them. So you can see here on all of those objects we have selected, every single one has this obstacle collision script. So we just need to add in level control onto there. So if we press play now, maybe collect a coin or two and crash into this rock, we should be able to see exactly what we need. So let's press play. In fact, I might crash into the turtle thing. So there we go. And you can see it's now stopped. So the clever thing is, at this point, we'd want to display how far we've run and everything we need to see. So let's do that manually. So if we go to canvas and turn on end screen, there we go. That's what we'd expect to see. So now we need to make a script which basically allows us to display that on our screen, and then we'll quickly work in a fade out. So let's now go to our obstacle collision. So where's it gone? There, oh, we're on it. Huh. Okay, so remember we had that level control. So best thing that we can do now is create a new script which goes on level control and allows us to start up that end screen. So if I go to scripts, let's have this as environment and create a new C# script, and we'll call this end run sequence. We'll open that in Visual Studio. And this is going to be really, really simple because effectively all we're doing here is enabling ourselves to display that object on screen. So there are a couple of things we'll need to do. Remember, we need to turn off our live statistics. So we'll start with that. So public game object live coins and public game object live dis, which is short for distance, and public game object, and this is going to be end screen. Now we are going to do this in terms of a sequence, i.e. we need to wait for a certain amount of time before things occur. I'm actually going to add in another variable which we haven't even created yet, so because we're going to have a fade out screen, so we're going to keep it in here ready. So public game object fade out semicolon. Now we don't need the update, so we can get rid of that. We don't need the annotations, but what we do need is to create a coroutine. So we will go enumerator, not enumerable, make sure it's a numerator, and we'll call this end sequence, open close bracket, open curly bracket. Now, I want this screen to appear only when Timmy has fallen down. So we need to wait, I think it's about maybe 5 seconds. So we'll have yield, return, new, wait, not for end of frame, wait for seconds, and we'll wait for 5. And after the 5 seconds, we'll say live coins dot set active is false, semicolon, live dis dot set active is also false, end screen dot set active true, and then we'll wait for another 5 seconds so we can copy this line of code, and then we'll fade out. So it will be fade out dot set active true, semicolon. Finally, in the void start, we need to say start coroutine, and in brackets end sequence, and then open close bracket, semicolon, and save. Now let's head back into Unity, and we need to attach this end run sequence onto the level control. Make sure we do put it on level control, simply because that variable is already declared in our obstacle collision script. So down here, we just need to set those variables. So coin display is live coins, distance display is live distance, end screen is end screen, and we just need to quickly create a fade out. And much in the same way we did with the fade in, we'll do this in probably 60 seconds. So game object, UI, raw image. We'll set this as completely black. We'll set the anchoring as stretch on the full and 0 everything out. And we need to set the alpha as 0. So we've got our fade out screen in place. So fade out. And let's create the animation for that. So animation tab, create, and we'll call it fade out. Press record. Set the first keyframe, which is only going to be done on the alpha, so make sure the alpha is set to 0. You'll see the 2 dots appear there for the keyframe. And we'll fade over, let's say, 2 seconds. So frame 120, we want the alpha to be 255. Let's press the record button to stop. Head back to project, click on fade out, and turn off loop time. Now we have our fade out in place. We can go to level control and then add fade out right there. Finally, last thing we need to do is be able to activate this end run sequence at the right time. So we turn off end run sequence right there, turn off fade out up the top, head to Visual Studio, head to obstacle collision script, and down here, after we've had main cam component animator enabled true, beneath that we need to put level control dot get component in spiky brackets end run sequence open close bracket dot enabled equals true, semicolon, and save. So hopefully all of this should work as intended. The timing may be a little off. You may need to change that depending on how quick you have your animations, how quick you want it to be, how slow you want it to be. You need to customize a lot of what we've done here. So let's give this a go. So I'm going to collect a couple of coins and hit that, and we should have that appear. There we go, your run is over, and now it should fade out after a couple of seconds. Perfect. So the timing may need to be changed, like I say, but essentially we've got that sequence working. As soon as we hit, everything stops, it displays what we've done, and then it fades out, ready for a scene transition back to maybe a main menu. So that is what we're going to do in the next tutorial. We're going to create a main menu and start linking some scenes together to make this a bit more like a game with different places to see, different menus and whatever else. So yeah, until the next tutorial, thanks very much for watching, guys.